Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon. I think we should sort of get right to it, discussing our prompt, which is what the interplay between technology and collections, both physical and digital, can best serve historical libraries' new roles. And our panelists are Dr. Lise Jaillant, who is a reader and associate professor in digital cultural heritage at Loughborough University in the UK. And our second speaker is Borui Zhang, who is a natural language processing specialist librarian in the Academic Research Consulting and Services Department at the George A. Smathers Libraries at the University of Florida. I will let Lise kick us off. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Pamela, for this very kind introduction, and thank you so much for the invitation to give a talk here. So, as Pamela mentioned, I'm an associate professor in English and digital humanities, and I was trained as a very traditional literary scholar. I spent a lot of time working in archival collections, including at Columbia University. So it's always a great pleasure to be back in New York City. So today I want to talk about access to collections in the GLAM sector, including in medical libraries. And this has been a central topic in my own scholarship as a humanities scholar, fighting to get access to archival collections. It has also been central to the 4 projects funded by the AHRC, the Arts and Humanities Research Council in the UK, that I've led as UK PI. So one of these projects is called Aeolian, AI for Cultural Organizations. So let me go back to my slides here. Okay, I should have a slide about Aeolian. Okay, anyway, so Aeolian is a project that was funded by the AHRC in the UK and the National Endowment for the Humanities in the US. And we have delivered 2 special issues in Journal of Computing and Cultural Heritage and Journal of Documentation. We've just finished an edited collection on navigating AI for cultural organizations, and it will be published later this year. And one of the key objectives of the Aeolian network is to bring together humanities scholars, archivists, and computer scientists to make archival collections more accessible using AI. So, as I said at the beginning, I want to talk about access, about archives, access, and AI. So this is the outline of this talk today. What I want to show, of course, is access is essential, and AI can be a great way to make collections more accessible. But there should be limits to access, and AI systems should be kept under human control. So let's start with the first section on why access is essential. So this is a quote from T.R. Schellenberg in Modern Archives, Principles and Techniques, 1956. Since the purpose of an archival agency is to make records available for use, an archivist normally favors a policy of free access. So in practice, many born digital archives are not accessible due to many reasons, including data protection, copyright, and technical issues to make these materials available in the reading room. So for those of you who don't know my work, I'm going to give you a few examples of email collections that I've used. The common point between these collections is that it is extremely difficult to get access. So the first one is an example from, okay, I seem to have issues with, okay. Yeah, I should have a slide about Ian McEwan here, but anyway, okay. So anyway, technical difficulties. So anyway, the example I wanted to give is from the Ian McEwan collection at the Harry Ransom Center in Austin, Texas. The collection was acquired by the University of Texas in 2014 and processed in 2015. It's a hybrid collection with paper records, electronic files, and emails. 9 years later, the email collection is still officially closed. So if you go to their catalog, it says the email correspondence has not been processed and is not available to researchers at this time. And yet, when I went there in 2017, I was given access to a selection of emails. So at that time, I had just been awarded a British Academy Rising Star grant, and as part of the project, I organized 2 workshops to bring together archivists and scholars to talk about born digital archives. I invited the digital archivist at the Harry Ransom Center to come over to Manchester, and because I had this contact, I was able to get privileged access to the McEwan collection. And I had a similar experience with the archive of the poetry publisher Carcanet Press at the John Rylands Library in Manchester. So if you go to the website of the Rylands Library today, it just says that recent correspondence in the form of email has been acquired in digital format. And there is no indication of how to request these emails or what they might refer to. So in practice, the email collection is closed to users. In 2018, I got a major fellowship from the AHRC, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, and thanks to this fellowship, I was able to hire an archivist. She was based at the Rylands Library and had access to the entire collection. In summer 2019, she prepared a selection of 200 emails that she thought would be interesting for me to see. She then submitted the selection to Michael Schmidt. Michael Schmidt is the founder of Carcanet Press for approval. And Schmidt requested that some materials be closed or redacted for confidentiality reasons. The redacted selection of emails was then sent to me as a PDF with email attachments in a separate zip folder. And I used various approaches to analyze these emails, including visualizations. So basically, if you're interested to know more about this, have a look at my chapter in the edited collection on archives, access, and AI, which can be, you can find the link on my website, lisejaillant.com. And the edited collection on archives, access, and AI includes a total of 9 chapters written by academics, archivists, and other GLAM sector professionals. So basically, I'm very interested in these cross-disciplinary collaborations, and the book aims to improve the way in which born digital archives and other cultural assets are discovered, accessed, and used. Let me give you another example, and I'm giving a lot of examples based on literary archives, being a literary scholar, but I think sometimes it's important to zoom out and look at other collections as well. So in summer 2022, shortly after the publication of this edited collection, I traveled to California for a conference and also to do some research at UCLA in the Susan Sontag collection, including the email part of the collection. So basically, as you know, Susan Sontag was an American writer, director, and political activist. She was born in 1933, and she died in 2004. The collection was purchased in 2002, so 2 years before her death. UCLA used its right of first refusal to purchase additional materials in 2005 and 2012. The collection includes 2 hard drives filled with the data from the computers Sontag used during the last decade or so of her life. And it turns out that the hard drives contain nearly 18,000 email messages, correspondence, drafts, and unpublished writings, photographs, and other documents. So they have a lot of email messages as part of this collection. And once the hard drives were transferred, UCLA did forensics work to review the files, and they then gave access to the collection to users. And basically, if you look at the original agreement with Sontag's estate, it was very generous in terms of access. It allowed UCLA to make all contents of the hard drives available to users without restriction, according to the various policies they have in the reading room. What then happened, so that was the original policy, but what then happened is that a UCLA graduate student read the entire email collection and wrote an article for the Los Angeles Review of Literature with another academic. And they made public that Susan Sontag had a relationship with the photographer Annie Leibovitz, something that Sontag had denied up to her death. And this is what they wrote in their articles, 2014 articles. We also know that Leibovitz was a witness to Sontag's will, and that Sontag's hard drives contained sensitive documents regarding Leibovitz's surrogate pregnancy. A simple keyword for Annie on the UCLA laptop is illuminating, whether we are mongering for gossip or just trying to create an accurate portrait of Sontag's digital life. Sontag was committed to protecting her privacy during her lifetime, especially with regard to her sexuality, and thus it's surprising that she should choose to open her digital life to the public at all. So remember, this is what those graduate students wrote in their article in the Los Angeles Review of Books. But of course, it is not Sontag who had decided to open up her digital files. It was a decision taken by her son, after her death. And it was the agreement signed between her estate and UCLA that made possible wide access to these documents. And when I visited UCLA special collections in July 2022, well, my experience was very different from that of researchers in 2014. So basically, when you do a search for Annie Leibovitz, well, you can find only 8 sent messages, 10 received messages, including 7 received from owner. And there was no indication to users that messages have been removed. So I had access to a very small, a very limited selection available only in the reading room. And remember, I'm based in the UK, so I had to travel all the way to California to have a look at this very, very limited collection. So is it better than no access? Well, it seems that UCLA has gone from one extreme to another. Files that were once freely accessible are now impossible to access. And if you look at the finding aid for this collection, well, it indicates that entire parts of the collection are closed to users in perpetuity, pending curatorial review. But there is no visibility about the date when these records will be made available. And the last part of the collection was acquired 12 years ago, so in 2012. So you may wonder why this curatorial review has not yet taken place. And remember that there are 18,000 emails in this collection and thousands of other documents. So, of course, it's impossible to manually review all these files. It would take huge resources. And here, of course, artificial intelligence can be a cost-effective tool to make bound digital collections more accessible. So we've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence this morning. So really just to sum up why artificial intelligence can be useful to provide access. The first thing is, of course, AI can be useful for sensitivity review, to identify sensitive information and make non-sensitive data more accessible. Also, AI can help with appraisal. It can identify important records with historical value and flag materials that are not relevant. And finally, AI can automatically create metadata when metadata is missing or is incomplete or contains problematic language. And of course, when you have new layers of metadata, it can improve accessibility and discoverability. So AI can be great to enhance access, but should everything be accessible to everyone? Okay, seem to be missing a few slides here, but anyway. So you remember, going back to what we said about Schellenberg, he argued that an archivist normally favors a policy of free access. However, free access is like free speech. It is essential to set the right limits to avoid bad things happening. And it is not a good idea to leave AI tools open up collection without human oversight. So let me give you 2 examples to show this need to set the right limits to access, especially when it comes to sensitive archival materials. And the first example I'm going to give you is from the Wellcome collection in London, of course, a famous medical collection. So the Wellcome collection has a new tool called the Visually Similar Images tool. And basically, they use artificial intelligence, and in particular computer vision, to suggest similar images and also, of course, to provide more context on a collection. So this visual search allows for certain images to be brought together without relying on metadata. However, of course, computer vision can be inaccurate. And this is what a member of staff told us when we interviewed them last year. So this is an interview we conducted in January 2000 and last year. So when you type in the word skeleton, the search engine doesn't look at the images at all. It looks at the descriptions of those images, the captions, the titles, the whatever. And if a thing matches those titles, then you get a result. But the results are not always great, particularly in a collection of data that is as messy as ours. The example at the front of my mind is that there was a very kind of tight cluster of words that related to food, and in the visual features that we extracted from images, it was hard for the computer vision algorithm to differentiate between pictures of meat and pictures of gory surgery. An algorithm doesn't necessarily know how to differentiate that context. So basically, there are other examples of inappropriate images suggested by these tools, the Visually Similar Images tool. So for example, the Wellcome Collection catalog features a poster of a breastfeeding mother used in a health campaign in Belgium after the Second World War, alongside a photograph of a male prostitute. And if you look at the caption, it says, "A one boy offers himself subject to the use of a condom," and this is an advertisement for safe sex by the Deutsche AIDS-Hilfe. And also, if you have a look at the date of the picture, it's from the 1990s. Well, it bears little resemblance with the metadata for the breastfeeding poster, which was created just after the Second World War in Belgium. And of course, the visual aspects of the 2 pictures are also dissimilar. You have 2 women and a baby on the one side and a young man on the other side. So, it's not a perfect tool, of course. And, these images are presented as visually similar. They are not, of course, visually similar. And then it's interesting that the Wellcome collection put a disclaimer, and the disclaimer says, we use machine learning to find images in our collection with similar shape and features. And basically, users are invited to get in touch if something doesn't look right. So the responsibility to report problems is therefore transferred to users instead of resting with the archival collection. So, okay, yeah, for some reason my slides are a bit mixed up. So anyway, I'm just going to, okay, so this is a book we've wrote. So, it was published 2 years ago on archives, access, and artificial intelligence. This is, my slide about Susan Sontag at UCLA. Okay, so this is the right slide about my article with, written with Katie Ask. It was published in Digital Humanities Quarterly earlier this year, and it's on AI and medical images addressing ethical challenges to provide responsible access to historical medical illustrations. And it's open access, so have a look at it if you're interested. So I'm going to give you another example of visual AI applied to sensitive images. And this is from my ICON project. So ICON is a project funded by the HRC in the UK and LabEx in France. So I work closely with French researchers, trying to make colonial archives more accessible using artificial intelligence. So what is the challenge we are trying to address with this project? Well, in recent decades, archival institutions have digitized large quantities of material, including from colonial archives. However, many of these materials have been digitized without sufficient metadata, which of course, if you don't have sufficient metadata, it can make it difficult to discover and use these archives. And when metadata exists, it often uses problematic language that replicates the perspectives of their colonial creators. And it is not possible to manually improve huge amounts of records and metadata due to lack of resources and fundings. So basically, we're using AI to automatically create new layers of metadata and automatically identify sensitive content. But of course, we are talking about very sensitive colonial images. So our ICANN database includes sensitive content warnings. And, it's important to think very carefully about the wording, when it comes to those content warnings. So basically, we point out that the material contains images as well as words, terms, and phrases that are often decontextualizing, inaccurate, derogatory, or potentially harmful to the descendants of colonized people. And we also point out that such images and terms are not neutral, since they were produced by actors with a stake in political domination, economic exploitation, and violence. So basically, users see this warning, and the next step for them is to click to confirm that they wish to view the problematic images, particularly images of war and violence. And we also encourage users to contact the team if they encounter distressing materials that are not properly contextualized. So it's a good start, but I think we need to go further. It is essential that access to these images is restricted to non-vulnerable users. So age verification is one way of doing that in order to prevent children to access violent pictures. So really the goal should not be to show everything, but rather to facilitate discussion of contested legacies. The management of sensitive content can never and should never be fully automated. We need human oversight alongside ethical AI tools. So let me move on to my concluding remarks and suggestions to achieve ethical AI to enhance access. And I hope I can find the right slide for you here. Okay, my takeaway points are here, so that's probably the most important slide. I'm glad I found it. So AI can be used to make archives, including sensitive images and text, more discoverable and accessible. So that's the first thing. We all know that AI is useful. However, access cannot be separated from responsibility. It is not responsible to release sensitive images and text without any oversight or to push sensitive content to users who have viewed images considered similar. And of course, when we talk about medical collections, often we talk about very sensitive content. So I think that's really relevant here. And really, a key point is that more professional guidelines and national regulation are needed to prevent children and vulnerable users from encountering sexually explicit, violent, and otherwise problematic archival materials. So I think these professional guidelines should be designed in collaboration with end users, with researchers, and other people who use collections. So it's important to consult end users in order to deliver ethical AI. It's important to keep humans in the loop. When we talk about ethical AI, we often use the phrase keep humans in the loop. So end users are definitely important people to keep in the loop. And I think a good first step is to set up working groups with end users to gather their opinion and to deliver responsible access using ethical AI. Thank you so much for listening.
Hi, I guess I'm the next, and I'm waiting for my slides to get ready.
Yeah, well,
No.
you found all
Is
my
that
slides
your
in the
slides?
wrong order, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Oh.
Yep. Still not mine yet. So, okay.
Here we go. Can you hear me okay? Yes, thank you, yes. Besides technical difficulty, for me is also a biological height difficulty when I have to stand up in front of the podium. Okay, great. I'm glad everyone hear me okay. Hi everyone, I'm Borui. I'm the natural language processing specialist librarian working in George A. Smathers Library at University of Florida. And thank you for inviting me today with this very meaningful and thoughtful prompting question. And okay, I'm gonna answer this question first with the extension of a subtitle that evaluating libraries with AI to strengthen collections and the collaborations. Okay. Another button? Oh, yes, thank you. Yes. So here is the roadmap that I plan to answer this question. I will first introduce a little bit more about my job title since it's very long and probably don't make sense to many of you. And I will move on later to do a quick review of technology in general and AI advancement in the history. And then discuss a little bit about what are the potential AI tools or areas that is promising for the advancement of library and museum collections. And on the third part, I will share with some of our ongoing experiments to explore AI tools for some specific collections. Okay, first, my job title. Natural language processing can be shortened to NLP. So NLP specialist, I'm currently the only AI hire at the libraries, so I have a nickname called AI librarian. I'm not a robot, but it's an easier name for my colleagues and the patrons I serve to easily remember me. But our library is still committed to starting hiring more AI specialties, maybe on more natural language processing side or computer vision side along the way in the near future. So a little bit about my training background. I got my PhD in theoretical linguistics and a PhD minor in computer science. In my research, I study endangered languages. In fact, I collect my own language data from native speakers from Kathmandu Valley, Nepal. And my interest was to analyze their discourse and to do some syntactic analysis on top of that. And at one point, I realized if I don't use any computational tools, I would need 20 years to get graduated. I was very lucky that before I graduated, there are AI tools, namely language model. At that time, by the time I graduated, there's no large language model yet, just language model. And that was already starting being helpful for my own little research. And where is my data now? I put it on this repository called GitHub, and I'm pretty sure that it's online, but I doubt that anyone will be interested to download that. And if there is some download stats, that will be myself. So I luckily learned that University of Florida started this university-wide AI initiative where my job position at the library initially created. There are many great actions through this AI initiative. I would like to highlight 3 points from this. So the first one is the chip company NVIDIA, many of us know here because it's their stock market getting very high these days. It's really hard to ignore them. And so they donated some supercomputing power to the University of Florida. We happen to have a physical facility off campus side to host this large computing system. And that from the university side, they committed to start hiring AI faculty throughout all the departments and colleges. And I think by this time, we have already hired close to 200 AI faculty members in our university. And I happen to be the one that hired by the libraries. So one big message the university want to send out to the to community is AI is right now is for everyone. Maybe we started hearing this term from engineering or computer science. It's okay, but it's no longer the case. AI for everyone is an executable action that everyone should have access to AI tools and should have the bridged knowledge to know how to use that to solve your own purpose. And that's why each department has started having AI experts to start creating curriculum to teach AI in those specific domains. And a little bit about the structure of my job responsibility. I do a lot of academic AI consultations. Because we have this pretty strong AI community there, it's really easy to start talk to new faculties or who specialize in AI, or the faculties already working at the university, but thinking that this is a time that they can also learn this new methodology and solve their long-term problem, maybe have a new way to do something creative. And I also teach courses and workshops to both graduate and undergraduate students. I have collaborators on research and both teaching and research side, both within the libraries and outside of libraries with other departments. Just a little bit, give some example about how is my work look like. In my AI consultation, a lot of questions are coming from new practitioners who want to try out some AI tools for their domain. And at some point, we'll start talking about the data. And we will start with some research question, but usually we end up at some point to talk about how the data it currently look like can be readable by a machine. For further machine learning and other analysis. So I found it interesting also, that's one of the main things that I feel like I'm very satisfied with my job is to communicate, to try to explain concepts like data processing and data labeling. These are the machine learning terms to domain-specific experts. My question, because my department at the library is served for the entire university, so different experts will come to me from the law domain, from medical, from agriculture, from social science. They all have their own traditional or own structure of what data will look like in their mind. And I found it fascinating and also challenging and also opportunity for me to learn how did they learn about AI and how can I explain these kind of machine learning jargons to them to start manipulating the data and have to be a meaningful way to proceed another other steps in AI-related research practice. So teaching AI to students. I'm teaching a 3-credit course, started last semester. We teach once a year. I have this co-instructor from College of Education, and our goal when we designed this course together, we wanted to really emphasize on AI is for everyone. So this is a course that everyone in a university, undergraduate student, they can take that. And also, we wanted to make sure that there is no prerequisite from the students, no math or no programming needed. We acknowledge the challenge that these are super useful knowledge to do AI, but it shouldn't be the obstacle to start requiring newbies to learn all the details about grammars of how to use Python, to block them, to bore them right away before the meaningful stuff. So we kind of want to change the order a little bit when we teach and deliver the materials. And a little bit note on AI programming is, to me, is a little bit different from the traditional programming. Traditional programming is a little bit more strict about how much data structure and computing compiler you should know. But AI programming these days, needless to say, Python has millions of releases and is still new packages are releasing every single day. So we want to enable students to know these packages to quickly get into the AI programming side instead of, we see this as a separate path. It is a plausible path that we can introduce data first to the student, motivate them to think about why I have to use AI programming to solve my problem, instead of teaching the grammar or the traditional programming right away. And so here is, we have about 70 students from different colleges. You see there are still some engineering students taking that course, which is fascinating. I guess this is a time that we all should think about how to modify our curriculum designs to meet the AI age. And we have students from public health, nursing, and other health science center related domain students. And earlier, one of the presentation I learned, someone asked a question about how AI can be useful in teaching, to teach students who's in this health science domain. So in our course, in the end of the course, students have to work together. They're from different majors, and then we put them together to really tackle in different backgrounds and decide a tool to analyze their own collected data. And I observed from last year, a lot of students from health science, for example, they care about how students like the college cafeteria, and how the cafeteria will benefit their happiness, their healthiness through the university. And those are authentic data. So this class, we really enable them to collect their data in their own way, and here is a very friendly tool that they can come up with initial result for a question that they're curious about. And needless to say, Python is there, programming is there, but it's not scary. There are different ways to approach to programming languages. Python is definitely not the only one, but my work, I try to help people with using Python libraries to access, using API to access different language models and packages and workflows for different complexity of studies. Okay, second, let's review a little bit of technology development. And I really like this timeline from, I think it's from worlddata.org. And there's nothing, not a single point says AI development. But really these development time points set a foundation for the AI development. For example, a little bit before 1950, the first digital computer was built. And we can imagine that later digitized or digital data sets becoming available later. And then in the 1970s, the first microprocessor. And very interestingly, right, little bit before 2010, the first iPhone. Think about it, if we don't have everyone, if not everyone has a phone these days, how much impact can these GPT and large language model can be accessed? Yes, there's no discrimination on Android users, but you got the idea. And we're here now. How about the evolution of AI? It's not surprisingly, the idea started in 1950. After the first computer was built. And I'm not gonna say too much about what experiment 1950 did. It's pretty much a machine translation experiment, kind of translating Russian to English, and that's how we got started. Instead of these days, the vector representation, they use the punch card, actual punch card to analyze things. And then fast moving forward,
because all those foundations of hardware started being available, and we can see that these AI achievements start getting more complex and more accessible by the large population. And so beyond this very nice timeline stopped from 2021, that's where we know, ooh, a large language model, ChatGPT started. But it does all AI development has a history. Maybe the time when we have access to it, it sounds like it's all of a sudden, but really if we go track back to the history, there is a solid development. And again, thank for all those hardware supports. And fast moving, how did we get here today? And ChatGPT, we have deepfake, right, very problematic. And I think just last week I read the news about the country started regulating deepfake, and you cannot deepfake some political reason materials. I think that's a one step towards to responsible AI. And also chess agent or any kind of agent these days are also kind of fascinating. Do you still like to play chess on your phone? That's a question, because it kind of beats everyone. But all these latest investment is rely on this latest invention, AI architecture called deep learning neural networks. And this is just an illustration of this, of how the kind of structure look like. And there are some highlights with this. Deep learning is currently considered as the new AI platform. But traditionally, when we talk about machine learning, it doesn't have to be deep learning or neural network based. But the fact is, all these eye-catching applications, most of them are built based on deep learning neural network. And I think earlier someone also mentioned, is it worth to wait for the library and museum collections? I think it's worth the wait. This is the right time to start testing a little bit. When I was a grad student, when a language model can only produce Bree eats apple, 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 and when a language model can only generate those sentences, nobody's interested in learning more about AI. But really, this deep neural network featured AI new era enabled a lot of sophisticated applications and really can be one step potential, not already working yet, but potential for a lot of practitioners to start testing these new architecture and new tools. And so to wrap up this second session, I think that the AI growth in the past years is really rely on these three things: algorithm design, computing power increase, and a rich data accessibility, and then data creation is getting richer and richer. And where collection, library collection and museum collection lie on this era. To me, I think collection in the AI era is very important for at least these three highlight reasons. Please talk to us and educate us more about what you think about era. So I think collection, museum and library collection serve as a backbone for all the researchers. And because in the collection field, it's not every field has this physical copy and then digital copy. Say, when I was a grad student, the only thing I cared about is data from a native speaker. Then I don't have to preserve that particular native speaker forever to access my data again. But in our very special collection, we do need to preserve those physical ones, which is a very valuable resource to have, because we have unlimited way to interpret what we have. If we only have a digital copy, it's eliminate us. But if we have a physical copy, then in the progression of technology improve, we can always discover something new from this traditional copy. And we will lose a lot of things if we don't have that copy anymore. And this is very collection special, but not all other domain needed this, so we have our specialty. And also holding, I think, collection materials holding real-world complexity. Back a little bit to the deep learning neural network. That technology is good and bad. It's bad that if your data set is super tiny, it's actually not doing that great. It's only suitable when we have a decent complexity of data that we want to explore. So usually when data get a little bit messy and then hard to deal with, and we call those real world data. And so I think most of our collections are super complex, and people spend their whole life to preserve it and then share knowledge about it. And really, it's a good place for those models to learn and for the next higher quality of models to share. And last but not least is also holding the ground truths. For a lot of researchers, I think they love to, okay, we have this idea to train some data sets, but for a large data set, complex structured data sets, it's really hard to manually label all those good information. But we do have that in the collections because we have been working on that for centuries. For us, it's already available here, but for many other fields, they don't want to do that. They know they have to start from scratch. The quality is, the ground truth for them is a little bit waving than the true ground truths that we have here. So there are definitely a lot of research opportunity that can utilize collection data for the development. And AI advancement. I've been in my position for almost 2.5 years, and because of this AI initiative and thanks to the university support on technology and networking, and also as the leadership from library and museums, I was able to find my little team to start doing some experiment on collections at University of Florida. So among all these nice collections, we were able to get a data set. We're trying to improve the discoverability in collections at the Florida Museum. Our question is, what are the limitations that citizen scientists, some enthusiastic users, can easily find the information they need from the collection? And how can AI bridge the gap between expert and novice? Being accessible to public, to us, is not just only to individual enthusiasts to use the website to access, it's also for students and teachers. These days, from my very limited observation, when an engineering class try to teach AI, they will use a data set can have so many pictures, but it's just a handwriting from 0 to 9. And because those are the very easy image engineering professor can find and quickly demonstrate the idea of how machine learning works to their students. But if we can find some way that evaluating or making all these collection data sets very flexible and available for teaching purpose, that will be a very nice thing. I heard earlier in the talk, someone is already teaching collections, and that it's very wonderful, but we are also hoping that for any college, any domain AI classes, they can still use maybe 1 or 2 modules very flexibly to access all these very nice data sets beyond just recognizing handwriting from 0 to 9. And this is what we did. We have to, because this is a deep learning neural network era, we try to find a complete data set, and data set has a little bit more variety of structures. to start testing the AI tools availability, we found this digital type collection for ceramics. And there were about 3,000 images across about 10 categories. We simplified them and tried to make an understanding, bridging the AI, bridging the language between expertise who wrote the ground truth information to these data sets versus other public users. How would they describe the same thing? And hopefully someday we can make a mapping. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, and you can still access this data set. So large language model has been serving a great tool for us to make this mapping happen. Here's an illustration that this is what we're trying to do is two ways. We have the ground truths, metadata, those are maybe a limited vocabulary, and large language model is enabled to find very similar information from non-jargon to map back to this collection. Again, this is going to be very helpful for teachers and learners, public users to explore more information about the collections. And this is our team. I have colleagues from Natural History Museum, and Hannah, she's in the audience. If you have more library, museum collection questions, please go ask her, make a friend. Again, I want to include my, my presentation here, but coming back to this great question, what's interplay between technology and collection? To us is we should take advantage of the very, very high quality data sets to serve explore more reliable AI methods, especially in the area that most of the AI tool these days are general purpose AI tool. The next step will be to use that as a base model to solve your specific problem. And that will also kind of solve some hallucination problem, hopefully. Also can help improve the data set itself. Yes, we have very rich metadata already, but if we have the physical copy, then that means there are a lot of potential, even for us, to learn something new about something we already have for many years. And these all thanks to everywhere support to interdisciplinary research. I'm very glad that I could find like-minded people at my university very quickly after I started job. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bree, and thank you, Lise. These were very rich and incredibly complex talks, which I feel are very well positioned after the morning session, where we were sort of just we're talking about, adaptation and how we move from the turning of the pages, and which has brought us to the metadata, and the holding the books and brought us to metadata. You've really beautifully explained that the physical collection is still going to retain a lot of value, in that it can inform different metadata sets, which is fascinating. You're also incredibly fortunate to be in a forward-thinking institution where there is value in deploying AI specialists across discipline. I feel like everybody in this room may be at a different point with their institution based on size and shape of collection. So I wonder how we try and achieve what Trevor was laying out for us, which is how do we achieve intent and trust and custody, and what are our first steps? We heard a lot about ethical decisions made, a lot about wanting accessibility and discoverability, and these all seem to be things that are desirable. what do you see as the obstacles coming from the different places in your experience in moving forward in that digitizing and in that metadata work that needs to be done to make your collections accessible and discoverable?
Yeah, I think one big obstacle that we have is when people do not talk to each other, you know, when you have researchers talking only to researchers and archivists talking only to archivists. I think, Borui, you mentioned interdisciplinary collaborations. I think that's really key if we want to make some progress. And all the projects I've been leading have been on collaborations across disciplines and across sectors, you know, bringing together digital humanists, archivists, librarians, and also computer scientists. You know, when we talk about AI, we have to involve computer scientists, data scientists, you know, AI experts. And we mentioned, you know, skills this morning, and the fact that many people feel they do not have the right skills, even so, of course, you do have this kind of skills on AI. But I think it's important, even if you're not an AI specialist, you know, to really to participate in this conversation and not to be shy. You know, we all have an expertise that is useful to this kind of debates. So really, you know, participating in those discussions, you know, bringing something to the table, I think that's super important.
Great. Thank you for the question. There are, yes, interdisciplinary collaboration is needed. And also, to me, I think this is where human in the loop is very important. Even though if we do trustworthy data set, but usually the human in the loop is in the AI modeling phase, but I think human in the loop should also be in a data set development phase. So where the data belong to, the domain, for example, us, we work very closely with Natural History Museum curators and the collection managers. All of our progress and what we explored, we constantly communicate with them. And because eventually this is either a technology or a final application that will be going back to the same place and expand their service. So I think that we should have a really great balance of a great number of domain-specific experts still in the position and having this consistent communication between tech side with the domain.
Thank you. Thank you both. It makes sense coming from Cooper Hewitt and having an object collection. We experienced the same thing. We digitized our collection. We have domain or discipline sector specialists who can provide language that's useful, and then we have the digital specialists. So it makes sense. And again, we find ourselves, I mean, while Michelle said we are at day one in 2024 of AI adaptation, I think we remember when we were all starting to adapt to going online. All disciplines, not just computer scientists and mathematicians. We have a question from the Zoom chat. How do you balance putting money into AI tools with the rapidly rising cost of data centers and storage and the environmental costs versus putting money into hiring more staff? And if you solve that, then tell us.
That's the question for my bosses, right? I think I'm very grateful about my university putting this AI initiatives where we definitely need, say, supercomputing, and we need experts. We need to be able to hire experts. And all those API closed models, right? We don't. These days, a lot of models are closed models. We only see the output, but we don't see how it was built. So currently, we don't have a concrete grant yet, but with all these leadership support, our little team still able to function, and we got a lot of trials access on computing and API access. I think that really gives us a time to not worry about money right away, but really testing out tools. There are maybe hundreds of tools come up every week, and we have the time to test, are these ones good for library and museum collection? And we have some flexibility there. But for the long term, we definitely like to have a consistent support for all these tech needs and human needs. And I definitely acknowledge that the electricity bill is very huge, but hopefully we can do a lot of data sharing and model sharing that we are not working in a silo, so we don't create unnecessary electricity waste by not communicating with each other.
It's a plug for GitHub, right?
Yeah, I think we like to complain, in the humanities and in the GLAM sector in general about the lack of funding. But I think there is funding available. At least, I'm talking about what I know in the UK. The HRC, the Arts and Humanities Research Council, is now part of UKRI, so UK Research Institute, and basically they want collaborations between the humanities and STEM. So I think there are some opportunities. It's just, sometimes it can be very frustrating when you apply for grant applications not to get the funding, but really it's a question of persevering and trying to get the funding. Eventually it can work, fingers crossed.
I wonder if it's specific to the U.S. versus, I've seen a lot of advancement in the UK, Australia, and in other countries where it seems that there is a sort of a more robust granting. Can I turn to the audience?
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Apologies.
So if I can thank you very much. What a wonderful discussion.